Welcome back. Today I'm going to try to solve some puzzles on chess.com as part of my daily chess development. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm not a title player or chess coach or an expert like you see with other chess YouTubers. I'm just a random person trying to get better at chess and recording my progress or sometimes lack thereof. I've been working my way up the puzzle ratings and here I am at 1970. It would be nice if I could crack 2000 here. All right, it looks like they have pinned my knight to my queen here with this bishop, but instead of trying to figure out what to do about that, I'm going to use my checklist, which hopefully has appeared on the screen. The first thing I look for is checks, and then I evaluate any checks. Then I look for captures, and I evaluate those, and so on. And threats is the last one here. I definitely do have a check here with this bishop, and I think that's the only one. I'm going to go ahead and guess that that's the answer to this puzzle. Because if the king takes my bishop, then I can check with the knight, and then wherever the king goes, I'll be able to take the bishop here with the king. And if the king doesn't take my bishop and just moves over, then I've picked up a pawn, and I have a bishop sitting right there on f7. But I think that's my only check. Do I have any captures other than that pawn? I don't. Okay. But just on the off chance that I capture this pawn and the king moves over, then what do? I guess I would just have to play h3 to see if the bishop wants to trade for the knight? I'm not sure. I'm going to go ahead and play bishop captures f7. Hopefully that's right. Oh, it was, and they did take. Okay. Well, then I think I need to check. And not here on e5 because the queen could just take my knight, and then I would get the bishop, but then they would be up because I just gave away a bishop for a pawn, so I need to get it back, and I think the way that I do that is checking here and then taking their bishop. Okay. I thought that's what it was as soon as I saw the puzzle, but I wasn't sure because I knew this puzzle had to be rated fairly high, and it is 1855. I have seen that pattern before with the bishop here and their bishop pinning my knight. So I am a little surprised that the puzzle's rated that high, but maybe the next one will be much harder. Next puzzle. Well, again, let's look at our checks first. As far as I can tell, I have 3 checks here with my queen on c8, d8, and d7. d7 comes with a knight attached to it, so that can't be horrible, can it? And they can't block that check, and so the king would be forced to move over one. And then I think I could check with my rook down there on c8, which I guess they could take, but then I could take. And they would have to block with the bishop, and I would take that too. I'm not sure because it's hard for me to see what the board's going to look like once the pieces are out of the way. Like once my queen takes here, protected by the d1 rook, which is under fire, but they can't take my rook while they're in check. So let me think about this one more time just to be sure. Yeah, the only legal move after that first check would be for them to move over. And I'm not going to consider these other 2 checks, I don't think. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and consider them anyway, just in case. Because I think that's it. But if I checked on c8, I assume they would take it with the rook. And then when I took with my rook, they would just block the check with their bishop. And if I checked on d8, I assume they would take with the bishop. So let's say queen captures d7 check. Only legal move is for the king to go to f8. And then I think I would check with this rook because my queen is defending that square. I don't think they would block with the bishop because then I would check here and that would be mate. So if I take here, I move over, I check on c8. I think they will take with the rook, and then I will take with my queen. And their king can't get out of check because the bishop's in the way, so it will have to block with the bishop, and I'll take that, and I think that's checkmate. Okay, let's try that. Okay, it did that, and then I will check with this rook. Hopefully that's right. It was. Oh, and they didn't block. Oh, I think the reason that they didn't is because I would have 2 possible moves here, but only one of them would be a mate in one. I'm curious about that. Let's go to the analysis board really quick. Here was the end of the puzzle, and it does say mate in one. So they would block here. Yeah, why didn't it go? Because that's a mate in one. It says this actually isn't. I thought this would be like a mate in 2 or something, but then they would just move up, and then they would get out. Okay, yeah. So it should have gone on. They only had 1 legal move, and I only have 1 mating move here. I'm always a little confused when they don't go on to the next move, especially when the next move seems obvious. Next puzzle. Okay, they have come back to attack my queen. I was very tempted to start off by evaluating this move, but I'm going to try to stick to my checklist and make a habit of that. I have a check here. I have a check here. I think those are my... Oh no, I have a check here on a3 as well. So 3 checks? 4 checks. Okay, but only one that looks relatively safe. Okay, well, let's eliminate the ones that I think are not safe. If I go to a3, I think they'll just take with the queen, and then they have a pawn about to promote. I don't know how they got that pawn down there. If I check on b1, I assume they'll just take with the queen or the king, and then they have a pawn about to promote. And then they're going to have a discovered check some way or another, anywhere they move that bishop. So this one here on b2 is protected by my pawn, but they could still just take with their queen and then take back with their king, and they would have gotten a pawn out of that trade, and they still have a pawn here ready to promote that I can't do anything about. So I'm going to guess that it's a1. And the king would not be able to move, so they would have to block with the queen. Okay, so queen to a1 check. They have to block with the queen. And then I can check on a3, and they can't block with the queen anymore because the pawn is there. Okay, I think that's it. It's kind of a slingshot maneuver here to get the queen away from defending a3 because their king can't run because of my pawn. And my pawn's also guarding that square. So I have a very powerful pawn here as well. Okay, let's go to a1 and then back to a3. And then this is mate. Okay, I almost didn't see that. I'm always happy when I get one that I almost didn't see, but I saw it at the last minute. Next puzzle. Again, we will stick with our checklist. Where are my checks? I'm playing with the black pieces. Okay, I have a check on d2 with the queen. Is that my only check? No, I have two other checks. I have a check with the knight to d3, and I have a check with the pawn on a5. Well, if I check with the queen on d2, they can't take my bishop because the knight's protecting it. So where could they move? Let's see, my knight would be covering that. My bishop's covering these two spots. My knight's covering the bishop. And my queen would be cutting off this diagonal. So they would only have two choices right then. Either to come down to c5 or go back to a3. And if they went to a3, I would have mate. Okay, so what if they came to c5? If they came to c5, then I could check again down here on a5. Where my queen would be cutting off this whole rank and my bishop's cutting off the diagonal. My pawn and king are covering these moves, so they would have to come to c3. And I'm closing in, but where would be my mate then? Because I don't think I'd want to go here because their queen's covering that, but I could come over one. Oh, but their queen's covering that too. So I could go over here to d5, and it would only have one legal move. And then I could check again. Oh, I don't know. Well, that one seems really long and complicated if they come this way. And again, if they go the other way, I think I have mate immediately. Okay, well, what about these other checks? If I check with the knight, they take the bishop, and then I would have a check with the queen, but they could get out two different ways. And if I check with the pawn, I assume they would take the pawn, and then I would have a check with the queen, and we might get into a very similar situation as we had before. So I think the queen check is best. I'm going to go with that because I don't see anything else. I do have a couple of captures like this pawn here and that pawn there, but it does look like if I start checking, their king is going to get trapped in here, and I'm going to be able to kind of follow it, and it's going to have to come down, and I would come over here, and then it would have to go down, and I think I could keep following it, but I'm not sure. Let's try it. Oh, it went that way. Well, that's just checkmate, right? Because the knight's covering here, the bishop's covering here. Oh, and I have to block with the queen, which I will take with the bishop. Okay, so it's not mate. I was wrong about that. Yeah, their queen can block, but I'm pretty sure it has to be, I think it has to be checking here because their only legal move is to block with the queen, which I would take with the bishop. They would take back with the pawn, and then maybe I could check them over here or something. Okay, check. Oh, they did block with the queen. Well, I'm pretty sure I shouldn't trade queens now, so let's take with the bishop. I don't want to check again with the queen because they can just block that, and then their queen's out of danger. So let's take it. Okay, oh wow. Oh, I got 6 points for that? I felt like that one took longer than the others that I only got 5 points for. Oh my, and that one was rated over 2100, so I'm definitely getting some harder puzzles now. Next puzzle. All right, again, let's look at checks first. I think my only check is bishop captures f2. Looks like they would just capture that, so that's probably not it. Well, let's follow this out. If I take there with the bishop and they take back with the queen, do I have a follow-up? I mean, I could check with the king here, but then they could just block with the rook or the queen. And if they take with the queen, and I don't think I have anything, guess I could attack the queen, but then it could just come back to where it was. So it's probably not that. What about captures? I can take the knight, can take this pawn, any other captures. I think that's it. Okay, so what does my opponent play if I take the knight? I assume they would take back. Does that give me anything? I don't really think it does. I mean, it opens up the D file, but I don't have anything ready to go in the D file. Okay, then is it a threat? And that's the one that I'm weakest on, usually. What can I threaten? Guess I could threaten this bishop here by playing b5, but I assume they would take with the pawn, and then I would take with this pawn, or the other one. I don't know. I don't know which pawn I would take with. And then they could just move the bishop. If I took with the a pawn, I assume they would trade the rooks first, and then they would just move the bishop. Okay, so what if I played b5 and they took with the pawn, and I took with my c pawn? Then couldn't they just move the bishop one square? That would allow my queen to see the knight, but the knight's pretty well defended by those two pieces. And if the bishop did come up to d5, yes, I could take it with my knight, but they could take back with the knight or the pawn. Probably the knight, because it would threaten my queen. So that's probably not it. All right, well, I paused the video for a little while and looked around. I looked and I looked. The only thing I could come up with that I didn't see before is that the knight is currently pinned. The knight is blocking my bishop from seeing their rook. So is there a way to get the knight to move? That's my question. One way to get the knight to move is to attack it by maybe, taking this pawn here on e4, and then if the knight took back, my bishop would get their rook. However, as soon as I saw that, I realized no, they would just take with the queen. Well, as happens every so often, I have run into a puzzle that I just can't find the solution to, but I have a feeling it has something to do with b5. So I'm going to play that. If it's wrong, I'll look at the analysis board afterward and try to figure out, why it's wrong and why the other move, whatever move it says, is best. So let's play b5. Okay, well, I guess that kind of vindicates me a little bit. Now, the question, obviously, is which pawn to take with. I'm going to go ahead and say the a pawn. Earlier, I was talking about the c pawn, but the problem with that, as we ran into, is the bishop coming here to aim at my rook. But if I take with the a pawn, then they can take my rook. I'll take their rook. Their bishop would still have to move somewhere. Oh, their bishop would be trapped. Okay, so I think it's taking with the a pawn. Fingers crossed. Pretty sure the bishop is still going to be trapped after I take the rook, and if I take the bishop instead, then the rook gets my rook. So I'm going to take the rook. Okay, I thought there was going to be more moves. Oh, wow. Okay, so it was about the bishop, not about the knight, and I confused myself by wanting to take with the c pawn, but it had to be the a pawn. Okay, wow. And if I can get one more puzzle correct, I will break 2,000, so let's try to do that. Fingers crossed we don't get a really hard one. Okay. My opponent has just moved their queen over. It looks like they're coming down here for, I don't know what for, checkmate? It wouldn't be quite a checkmate because I can get out. Well, let's see. I have some checks. This is a check here with the rook. It would just move up one. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's my only check. They just left their rook hanging. I'm not sure what they should have done. Maybe they should have gone over here to protect their rook. But if I check by capturing their rook, they only have one legal move, and that is to come up. And I noticed this bishop hiding over here on a2, so I'm wondering if I shouldn't bring it down and check at that point. If the king went back, hiding behind the bishop, then I can bring the bishop up here attacking the queen, and they would be in check from my rook again. Okay, so if I check here, they move up, I check with the bishop, and they come out, which would be their only other legal move. Then I check with the bishop again, protected by both rooks, and when they get out of check that time, I would get their queen with the bishop. That seems pretty straightforward. Do I have any captures besides this? I think those are my only two captures. Well, I can take this pawn, but I'm not going to because then they would take my rook. I don't think I have any threats more significant than this. Also, it seems really obvious. They just left a piece hanging. And so that's what's making me hesitate, is because it seems really obvious. It's a check and a capture and pushes their king around. But is there anything else? Like, I don't think it would be good to try something like this because then they would take that rook and their rook is safe. Sorry, I don't remember exactly what I was saying there. One of my children started texting me. I had to go handle that. So back to this. I think it's pretty obvious that I just take the rook. I'm going to do that. If it's not right, we'll find out why. Okay, they did go up. And I think this is pretty obvious too, because I'm going to win the queen for a bishop, I think, no matter which way they go. If I check with the bishop, they only have two legal moves at that point. And if they go down to h8, then I bring the bishop out here. It's check from the rook and I'm going to get their queen. But if instead of h8, if they go to g6, then I bring my bishop up here to f7, and they have to get out of check, and I win the queen for the bishop. I don't see anything better than that, so I'm going to do that. But before I do, let's be careful. Because one thing I could do is put the rook here and, try to come in for a checkmate. But I think the problem with that is that it's slow because it's not a check. Then they can start checking me. And yeah, I can get out of check, and then they can check me again, and then I take their knight, and then they take my rook. So, okay, that's probably not good. I'm going to try the bishop move. Okay, they did come out, so I'm going to go here and win their queen, I'm pretty sure, like so. Okay. Oh, goodness. Oh, and I did break 2,000. Okay. Oh, that one was only rated 1821. Okay, so the first puzzle that I did in this video and this one were both rated in the 1800s, and they both felt easier than the other ones. So maybe their ratings are accurate, but this one seems pretty high. This rating seems pretty high because that part seemed really obvious to me. Hopefully that means I'm getting better. But I have a few minutes on my end, so I'm going to try another puzzle. Hopefully that won't put me below 2,000. Fingers crossed that it's not going to be terribly devastating. It actually looks like a pretty hard one. Wait, I'm playing with the black pieces? No, this looks like an easy one, doesn't it? No. For a second there, I was saying that this is mate in my head, but it's not because their knight can take that. Those knights actually are pretty irritating. They're guarding this pawn, they're attacking this pawn, guarding that square, guarding this square. Yeah, all the red squares are squares that those knights can move to, one knight or the other. A couple of them, like this yellow one here, both knights can move to, and this yellow one. Yeah, so those knights are really irritating. Okay, so this isn't checkmate. Would it be checkmate if that knight was gone? Because my bishop's covering all of this, my king is covering these 2 squares, my rook would be covering the whole 4th rank. So yes, it would be checkmate if that knight wasn't there. No, because then they could get away. If that knight wasn't there, that would be the getaway square for their king. Okay, so I shouldn't try to get rid of the knight. Besides that rook check, do I have other checks? I do. I have a check with this knight, which looks like it would win their rook. What would the opponent play if I checked here? Well, they can't come here and here because the bishop and my king. They can't come here because the king and the knight. They can't go there because the bishop, so they would be forced to come out toward the knight, which is actually defended by the bishop at that point, so I wouldn't have to take the rook immediately if I had something else. But I still wouldn't have checkmate because their knight is still guarding h4, so I think I would just take the rook. Is it going to be that easy, or am I way off? Oh, I hope I'm not way off, because then I'll have to do another puzzle to get back above 2001. And if I miss it on the first move, I'm going to lose like 15 points. Oh my goodness. But I don't see anything else. Let's see, do I have any captures? Other than doing the fork and getting the rook, I don't have any captures. I can capture this pawn, but then they'll just take my rook, and I don't think I would have any follow-up after that. No, because both those knights are guarding this pawn. Okay, I'm going to check and hopefully take the rook. Fingers crossed. Oh, it was that. Oh my goodness. Okay. Now the question is it taking the rook? Because I can check again, but then the king just goes back. I can also check again over here on c5, but I think they would take with the rook, and then I would have lost a knight and a pawn, whereas right now I can just take the rook. That's gotta be it, right? Because I still can't check. The knights are guarding both of those squares. I can take this pawn now, the h3 pawn, but I don't know what that gets me. I'm gonna take the rook. Oh my. Oh, there's more. Oh my. Okay, I'm in check. I didn't know there was gonna be more. I have to get out of check. Well, their king and pawn are cutting off those 2 squares. Their king is guarding the pawn. Knight's covering this, knight's covering that, knight's covering this, pawn's covering there. So so I only have 2 choices. Wait, I can't capture the knight, can I? No. I want to say it's going to be h5 because I'm thinking if I go to h7, they can march this pawn forward with a check, guarded by the knight, and then I would have to go up or down, and then if I went up, then they could check again. No, but then I could take the pawn. Maybe it's coming back to h7. What's the problem with going to h5? The problem with going to h5 is they take this pawn with check. But those are my only 2 options, h5 and h7. If I go to h5 and they take this pawn with check, then I have to go to h4. And is that mate? Oh yeah, so I should go to h7. Okay, fingers crossed it's h7. They did check me with the pawn, and it is still going. All right, so it's either g8 or h6. Okay, we already said if I go to h6, they could check me again. But if they check me again, I take the pawn. Okay, so if I go to h6, can they do anything else? They can't check me with the other knight. And if they move the knight on the 5th rank, then I can take the pawn. Okay, what if they move the king forward to protect the pawn? Well, then I could check in. Okay, well, is there a downside of going back here? That one downside of going back to g8 is that I can't come back because of the pawn. If I come down to g8, no, I don't know. I'm way off. I'm going to go to g8. If it's wrong, we'll try to figure out why. Oh, that was right. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I am done. But I'm going to go to the analysis board and try to... Well, okay. Yeah, I'm exhausted after that one. That one was just barely rated over 2,000. Hopefully you got something out of this. I feel like I got lucky in this one, but I guess I feel like that quite often on the difficult puzzles. But maybe I shouldn't. At least on the ones that I get right. It means that I'm reasoning correctly, and by now it should be reinforcing that, to my ego so that I would be a little bit more confident. But again, thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.